But then at one point he was like, you know what, if I keep feeling bad for myself and sorry for myself, then I'm never going to start playing well. And so I just got to accept that, you know what, maybe I do suck right now, but that's okay because I can get better. And I believe in myself to get back to number one. All right, so we're talking all about the best resources and the resources that made the most impact in our careers. And so when I think about resources that really helped me in my career, I think of books. You know, I'm a big reader. Um, in 2020, during COVID, I started to really read a lot. Um, this was a time when I was going through the yips as well. So I was just trying to find any kind of resource that would help me get through it. And I got into self-improvement and these books. And what I found was that these self-improvement books really helped my performance on the field. And so I want to share some of these books with the audience today, and just go from there. But what do you think about that, Jared?
I love it. Books are powerful. I've read a lot of books, and one thing I am trying to be better at is applying some of them. So especially some of these self-development type books that you're probably going to talk about. It's really great to read them. It's really cool to learn about those things. But I just know for myself personally, I need to do a better job of applying some of those things that I'm learning. And one thing that I'm doing a little bit differently now is reading less books, but maybe reading them more frequently. So reading the same book more than once, or really just taking my time with it and making sure that I'm not just reading a book to read it, but I'm actually going to apply it and challenge myself with some of the things that are in there. And something that's actually helped me too with that is being in a group. So I have like a small group that I do for reading, to where we'll kind of not challenge each other, but we'll check in on each other to see, okay, these are the things you said you wanted to work towards and work on. Like, how's that going? How can I help you with that? And I think having people around you that can help you with those things is really beneficial as well. But I'd love to hear what your first book is.
Yeah, no, and going back to like how you read, I think that's so true. It's like the best way to learn is to have like 10, 5 to 10 really good books and just reread that every month or something. And that's something that I do want to try to do. And it's something that I do with some of these books. Um, but I love just like reading new ones. So there was a time where I was reading like 2 books a week, just like skimming through them and just like getting through them. But yeah, I definitely would recommend just finding one good book. If you really like it and you think you got a lot out of it, then stick with it and just like reread it every month.
Yes. Real quick, it just made me think of something. I was listening to a podcast with, I think it was Tim Ferriss that was talking about it. And I think he said that he doesn't read any new books anymore unless it's been around for like 3 or 5 years and it's shown to be like a really beneficial book. And even 3-5 years later, people are still talking about how great of a book it is. Otherwise, he just reads the same ones that he's already read that he knows are going to help them, because of that same thing you talked about just reading books just to read them and just kind of accumulating all this volume with maybe a little bit too less of action. So I thought that was kind of an interesting strategy of like only reading new books that are, kind of have a track record of being really beneficial books. Have you heard him talk about that before?
Yeah, and that's yeah, I've heard a lot of like really smart people talk about that. It's they only read books that have stood the test of time, because right now we're like in the social media age. We're reading, like, most of what we're reading is being created in the last 24 hours, and so we don't really know if it's good information or not. And so there was one that really stood out to me. There's this guy called Culture Critic, or I think it was a Cultural Tutor, I think, on Twitter. He's like massive. He's got millions of followers, and he's just such a great writer. And someone asked him, "Hey, like, how do you write like this?" And it was like, yeah, "I only read books that are like 100 years old." And so that's that's to the extreme, but I think there's something to that. Like, just finding books that have stood the test of time, and it's gonna bring a lot of value to you, and so it's not a waste of time reading it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, one of my go-tos is How to Win Friends and Influence People, which that book has been around since I want to say the 30s. And I know that's like kind of a staple for a lot of people. And it's just such a good book. And it's really nothing earth shattering, to be honest with you, but it's really, really beneficial things or good reminders of things that you should be doing, how you should treat people, how to care for people, how to serve other people. That's just like a really simple book that just came to mind when you were talking about that.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I do want to touch on is that these books don't have to be sports specific for it to be valuable. I actually think it's even more valuable if you can take something from the self improvement world or like the business world or something like that and try to apply it to your athletic career, because then you're thinking about it, then you like are actually taking action. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be like a baseball book for it to be valuable. It can be, I got the most value, like none of these are baseball books. So I got the most value out of just more like generic books because they just have so much wisdom and value in them.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Well, what's your first one?
All right. So I want to do a quick mention. This is my favorite book ever. It's the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. But it's a great read, but I wouldn't say like baseball players would get too much out of it. But it's a great read. But I just wanted to mention that real quick. All right, the first one that would actually help a baseball player and actually really helped me during my career. And this doesn't have a cover right here, but I think you can see Open by Andre Agassi. This is such a great book. It's written by Andre Agassi, who was in his prime. He was the #1 tennis player in the world. And then some stuff happened, and then he had a big drop off, and he was like number 200 in the world or something like that. But then he was able to make a comeback, and at the age of like, I think he was like mid-30s, something. He was old. He was able to become #1 in the world again. And it's such an interesting story because first thing he always says in the book is like, I hate tennis. I've hated tennis. Like my dad forced me into tennis. I've never liked it, but I still continue to play. And so it's kind of like a book of how he endured adversity and pain throughout his career. And I've got a couple quotes that I want to talk about really quick. But if you're going through any type of adversity in your sporting career, then you should definitely read this, because it just teaches you how like the best in the world deals with adversity. So I'm gonna go like, I have a couple quotes here, and some of them are one of my these are my favorites from the book. So his first one, he goes, even if it's not your ideal life, you can always choose it. Choosing it changes everything. And so he talks about how he hates tennis and he hates his life, but at one point he had to choose his life. It was like, I can't just keep playing the victim mentality of being like, oh my god, my dad forced me into tennis and I'm forced to be playing and I hate this. He was like, no, like this is my life. I have to choose it at some point. And so in the book he goes, all right, this is my life. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to do the best I can. I think it applies so well to baseball players because, like there's so many baseball players that can play the victim mindset. I've been there, multiple times in my career, and you just feel sorry for yourself, and you're like, oh my god, I don't know why this is happening to me. Like this sucks. But if you can kind of just tell yourself, hey, like I'm still playing baseball, and if it's truly your passion, then it's probably, you wouldn't want it any other way. You're doing, if that's what you love, if baseball's what you love, then that's probably you wouldn't want to be doing anything else anyway. So just being able to choose that instead of playing the victim mentality, that was a big perspective change for me. What do you think about that one, Jared?
It's incredible. I love it. I actually haven't read the book. I actually saw you make a post about this. I think it was a couple days ago about the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that I need to read it, but no, I love that, and you're exactly right. Like every player, at some point, you're going to have to go over or go through adversity, and it's how you handle it that ultimately matters. And I think that's just a really great message. Yeah, I need to read that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when I first read it, it was like eye opening and emotional. But anyway, I'm gonna go on to the next one. So he goes, unless I can accept that I'm where I'm supposed to be, I'll never belong there again. And so this is he's talking about when he pretty much sucked. He was like number 200 in the world, and he was like, oh, like I used to be number one in the world. Um, I don't know why I'm here. Like I'm playing in these crappy tournaments, and he couldn't accept that he was not in the like elite echelon of tennis players anymore. And so he was feeling sorry for himself. But then at one point he was like, you know what? If I keep feeling bad for myself and sorry for myself, then I'm never gonna start playing well. And so I just gotta accept that, you know what, maybe I do suck right now. But that's okay because I can get better and I believe in myself to get back to number one. And so he goes through that whole journey of okay, like it's pretty much just starting at ground zero again, where it's like I'm number 200 or wherever he was at, and he starts that climb back up to number one, and eventually he gets there. And so this was something that I really resonated with because in 2021, yeah, 2021, I was with the Phillies and I was in the best physical shape of my life. I was up to 99 that year, nasty stuff. I had just like come off the yips and I was throwing strikes. I was dominating with the Phillies. But I was in rookie ball, and I was like, dude, I don't know why I'm in rookie ball. Like this sucks. Like, but during this time, I was reading this book and I'm like, damn, that's so true. Like I have to accept that maybe I am just a rookie ball player, and what I need to do right now is to dominate rookie ball hitters, not think about how I should be in low A or high A or whatever. And as soon as I accepted that, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be the best rookie ball player I can be, that's when I really started to play well. And then shortly after, I got traded. But yeah. And
No, I
so
love
I want to
it's
go,
good.
yeah,
I was gonna say real quick, like that is a very powerful message because I think every single player can relate to that at some point to where they think they should be higher up, whether it's with their college team. Oh, I should be a starting pitcher, or I should be in the weekend rotation, or if they're in pro ball, I shouldn't be in low A anymore. I should be moving up to higher levels. Like I dealt with that all the time as a coach, working with guys, and it's especially hard in the pro game when you're seeing your buddies getting called up to the next level, and then you start thinking, I'm better than that guy. I should be up in high A right now versus accepting the fact, like you just said, maybe you are better than that guy. Let's just assume that you're not, and you have a lot to prove, and you need to dominate the level that you're at. So there's no question that you should be at the next level. And I think it's just the way you look at it and the way you flip the script, rather than just thinking that you're the best thing ever and never really reflecting back on, what, there's some things in my control that I need to improve on if I am going to get to that next level. And maybe I am good enough to get there now, but obviously it's not noticeable enough, or I'm not dominating enough for them to have no doubt in their mind that I should be moving up to the next level, or that I should be in the starting rotation. And I think like the bigger you make that gap of how good you actually are and backing up what you think about yourself, then there's going to be no doubt. There's going to be no way for them to avoid what you're doing and to give you those opportunities. And I think it's all about a mindset shift of looking at it that way and using that as motivation and drive to work as hard as you can and as smart as you can to be as good as you can.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Should I keep going like one or two more, or should we move on?
One or two more quotes, or you're the
Yeah,
next?
quotes. Yeah.
Yeah, keep rolling. I like this.
Okay. All right. So this next one's pretty powerful as well. So Andre Agassi's rival, you could say, was this guy called Pete. I forgot his last name. But every time you played Pete, it was a fierce battle, and most of the time, Andre Agassi would lose. And so this is a quote that came out from that. He goes, if I had beaten Pete more often, I might go down as a better player, but I'd be less. And so basically what it's saying is that he learned so much from all those losses that he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. So even if if he had beat Pete more often, then yeah, he would have gone down in the history books as a better player. He would have had a better ranking, more wins, whatever. But his saying that all those losses led to so much personal development and development of his game that he wouldn't want it anyway. And so, for baseball players, I mean, this is a pretty obvious one because it's a game of failure. And as pitchers, I mean, I've experienced this so many times where you just go out and you get humiliated in front of everyone. You just absolutely suck. But most of the time, like personal development wise, like maturity wise, emotionally, like those are the types of moments that give you the most growth. And so that's something that to keep in mind. And like sucking and losing is always going to suck, but when you reflect, maybe you can be like, damn, yeah, those losses really impacted my growth. And me right now, I retired like a week or two ago, but when I look back, I'm like, damn, like all those adversities are kind of what shaped me, and I'm grateful for that now. So um, yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
I'm gonna
good.
go on. Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go on the very last one. I don't want to take up too much time with this one, but all right. All right. So the last one, this is actually a mantra that I had um, for a lot of my career. He goes, "What you feel doesn't matter in the end. It's what you do that makes you brave." And so, how I think about it is that like when we think about like fearless competitors, and like guys who go out there and compete and just look like they're not scared at all, and like just savages. Um, Most of the time, they're still scared. It's just they do it anyway. And so, um, the definition of courage is feeling scared but doing it anyway. And so, like, it's not like anyone just doesn't feel scared. It's like everyone's scared. Like even your idols, like like the biggest players in the big leagues, they're still probably like um, scared sometimes. But the difference is that they're gonna go out and compete and just do it anyway. And so sometimes, like it's it's the actions that matter. It's not your feelings. And being able to act, even if you're feeling like off or scared or whatever, that's what really matters. And so, yeah, that's a mantra that I had. When you have the yips, you're scared to throw a ball, but I'm like, you know what? As long as I'm out there and I keep coming out, then that's what matters. And so that really resonated with me as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like a lot of players, they'll feel that, especially if it's like a bigger stage. Let's just say it's a playoff game or you're playing in front of a bigger crowd. Like for me, example, when I was at George Mason, most of our games, not that many people. These aren't like big stadiums at a mid-major Division I school, maybe a few hundred people at most games. And then we made it to a regional my senior year, and we played at Rice University. And I was starting the opening game, and there was 7,000 people there. We're playing Rice, the host team. There's a bunch of fans cheering for them and whatnot. And like, I couldn't help but fear. And I wouldn't say scared was the word, but you feel, a little bit more added anxiety, or you just feel the butterflies. You feel all those things that are just a little bit different to where maybe, the first inning, or as I'm warming up, I can't even feel my hand as I'm throwing the baseball, just because there's so much adrenaline, just the anxiety there. And, I would say it's a nervous feeling, but it's also a really good feeling at the same time when you actually do, like you said, you still do it anyway. It's about the actions. It's not about, just living in the fear and not doing something, but taking action. And usually once you get going, it feels a lot better, and you start to get comfortable, and you start to almost hunger for that feeling. At least I did in that, to where it's like you get into the zone in a sense, to where like everything else is blocked out and you're just almost like on a cloud as you're playing. Like that's how I describe that feeling of being in the zone. It's just like you're aware of everything, but it's almost like you have tunnel vision on everything that you're trying to accomplish, which, as a pitcher, is throwing strikes and attacking the glove. So it's like a mixed feeling of anxiousness, but also a lot of excitement and focus.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Cool. Well, let me jump in. I'll jump into, are you done with that book?
Yeah, I'm done with that book. Yeah.
Perfect. That was great. I got to read it now because I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Then you posted about it yesterday or a couple of days ago, and now you talked about it. So that just confirmed it. I got to read it. So
Mhm.
I'll do that. I'm going to jump into, I'll do a book. I wasn't going to do a book first, but since we're on the book topic, I'll talk about one a little bit. I don't have quotes and all that, but I'll give a little brief summary about it and go from there. But the book is called Just Tell Me I Can't by Jamie Moyer. So for those of you that don't know, Jamie Moyer was a major league pitcher for a long time. I think it was like 25, 26 years, played for multiple teams. He's a left-handed pitcher. And I want to say he might be one of the oldest pitchers to ever pitch in the major leagues. He was like 48 or 49 the last game he played in, I want to say 2011 for the Colorado Rockies. And it was after he had Tommy John surgery at whatever age he was, 45, 46. Let me see. I got it up right here. Yeah, he was 49 in that year. 2012 was his last year and pitched in the big leagues. So Moyer kind of has a cool story because he wasn't a hard thrower by any means. I mean, and when he got drafted, velo wasn't as important for getting drafted. He got drafted in the 80s out of St. Joe's University, a mid-major in Philadelphia. And he went fairly high. He went in the 6th round. It was 1984 by the Chicago Cubs. He was like a low 80s lefty. That's what the book says at least. And I believe it based off of seeing him in the majors, but like he literally was a low 80s guy, maybe could run it up to 85, 86 every once in a while, but he was a low 80s guy, crafty lefty. Ended up making it to the major leagues pretty young. He was in the big leagues by 23 years old. Like I said, he was drafted in 84. He was 21 then. So within 2 years, he was in the big leagues for the Cubs. Did okay his first like 5 years. He was with the Cubs, and he went to Texas for a little bit, then went to St. Louis, and he did pretty bad with St. Louis. Ended up getting released, and I want to say he didn't get signed for at least a year. And like it seemed like his career was over. He was 27, 28 years old. Teams weren't interested in him. He performed poorly the previous year. He was married at this time and had a couple kids, and like the book says that his father-in-law was basically trying to get him to quit baseball. Like he needs to stop playing. He needs to get a real job and he needs to take care of his family. And Jamie just like knew in his heart that like he wasn't done, that he still had something to prove and that he still had the drive to still play. And he ended up getting an opportunity with the Tigers in AAA in 1992. Didn't make it to the big leagues. He was in AAA the entire year, did really well, but just didn't have an opportunity. And he was about to retire at that point, or he was contemplating it, just because back then in AAA, like you weren't making the kind of money you're making now, even in the minor leagues. And he ended up getting an opportunity with the Orioles in the big leagues the following year, and basically never looked back from there. Pitched in the major leagues up until, like I said, into his late 40s, which is truly incredible. But he just constantly throughout his life was told he didn't throw hard enough. He wasn't good enough. He wasn't going to be able to pitch in the major leagues. And then when he got to the major leagues and struggled, he even had his own family telling him that it was time to move on and do something different. And he just overcame adversity after adversity. And, as the title of the book is, Just Tell Me I Can't, like that was kind of his motivation. Like people telling him that he couldn't do something only pushed him and motivated him more to keep going. And I read this book in college, I want to say, or maybe it was a little after college. I can't remember when the book came out, but I just really connected with it just because I was a similar pitcher to him in the sense that I was a crafty lefty. People told me all the time I couldn't play Division I baseball. I wasn't going to be able to play professional baseball. And it just fueled the fire to keep going. And although I didn't make it to the majors, I will say that just the motivation and drive never wavered. And in large part, reading a book like that and hearing a story of someone that made it to the top was really inspirational. But that's by far one of my favorite books, and I recommend that to people all the time, especially players. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Have you heard about his story or read that book before?
No, not at all. No. I know of him, and I think I watched him pitch, I think. Um, I just knew that he had a really great changeup. And all these people, all the baseball guys were like, hey, you don't have to throw hard. Look at Jamie Moyer. And he was the example. And so, yeah, but I don't really know too much about him, no.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy story. Pretty cool. Just, especially nowadays. Like he wouldn't get drafted today. A lefty throwing in the low A's. He definitely wouldn't be going in the 6th round. I'll tell you that. And it was from a smaller school, St. Joe's in Philadelphia. But pretty cool. That's the general gist of that book. What do you got next? You have another book or a resource?
Yeah, I've got one. Let's see here. All right, we're going with a heavy hitter right here. David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me.
Here we go. Now we're taking it up a notch.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So for those who don't know David Goggins, he is a his right now is like a motivational speaker pretty much, but his backstory is that he used to be this depressed 300 pound dude who would like he was like a janitor or something like that. He was just depressed in life and it was like just going nowhere. He had a crazy childhood, abusive, everything. And so he was kind of just jacked up mentally and physically. He was not in any good shape. And so to try to break out of that cycle, he applies to be a Navy SEAL. And the guy, are they called scouts? Like scouting for Navy SEALs? Do you know?
Recruiter, I think.
Oh, recruiter. Okay, yeah. So the recruiter was like, "Hey, like, there's just no shot you're gonna be able to pass the test. Like, you're 300 pounds." And David Goggins was like, "All right, so like, how long do I have?" And it was some short time frame. I can't remember exactly how long, but it was like 2 to 3 months, something like that. And so he pretty much had 2 to 3 months to lose like over 100 pounds. And so he does that and he's like working out every day. He's like working out every single hour of every day. And then like during that whole process, he starts to get like more, he starts to become like a badass. Like he's just like working out every day. And he goes and does the Navy SEALs training and he passes, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I think he might have failed the first time and then he does it again and then he passes. But anyway, it's just a whole. The book is about just not limiting yourself, and and it's kind of like just like diving deep into your like insecurities and what's holding you back, and really trying to attack them so that they don't hold you back. And I really, really love this book because it had challenges at the end of each chapter, and so I want to go through a couple of these challenges right here that I have, but yeah, these challenges really helped me. So like the first one was accountability mirror. Write down your goals and insecurities on post-it notes and place them on your mirror. Use these to remind yourself and hold yourself accountable daily. And so I did this when I was like 17 or 18. And so I'm trying to write down all my insecurities and stuff. And as a young dude, like I had, you know, massive amounts of insecurities about everything. And so I would write them down, like, and then you'll put them on the mirror, and then you try to attack them by exposing yourself to them. So it's actually a funny story. Is when I was 18, I was scared of talking to girls. I was pretty shy, and so I had it written down, like, all right. And so what I did to like overcome it was like me and my buddies would go out and just like ask just a bunch of girls for their numbers. Like go out to them, hey, like I think you're cute. Can you give me your number? And we did that a bunch of times, and it actually really worked. And so it was pretty much just write down your insecurities, go attack them through exposure therapy, and that was the first challenge. Do you have anything on that?
Well, yeah, well, it comes back to what we talked about earlier, like reading or going through things without action doesn't really serve a purpose. So like that's what I love about Goggins is like he's not a type of guy that messes around. Like he doesn't make excuses for anything. And like if you've heard him talk about anything, it's that like there's no excuse for you not to do something. And like going back to the Navy SEALs thing, I want to say he failed Hell Week like more than twice. Like it was like he made it to the last phase, and there was something that would happen. I forget what it was. It was like he couldn't do maybe the swimming part of it, or there was some aspect of it that he struggled with. But I want to say it was like 7 times that he had to go to Hell Week, which is just absolutely insane. Which, for those of you that aren't familiar, think Hell Week it's like the last step of becoming a Navy SEAL of boot camp. And it's just like the worst possible thing that you can think of, just training at all hours, being malnourished. It's just an intense week that most don't survive, or not don't survive, but most that just don't pass. And he, I want to say, went through it close to 7 times. Don't quote me on that, but it's just unbelievable, the resilience that he's had, and just like other things that he's done where he's done an ultra marathon in 110-degree heat without any training. And I think he said he had shin splints to where it was like he had like literally like was starting to break like his ankles, and he's peeing blood and just all this insane stuff for no other reason than just to prove to himself that he can do it. Like there's no magic prize at the end of most of these things that he was doing. Obviously being a Navy SEAL, serving your country, that's different. But like some of these ultras that he was doing, all these other things, it was purely to prove that he could do it and overcoming some of those hurdles and insecurities in his life. So I got a little sidetracked there, but like he does really motivate me and really makes me reflect on not making excuses for things.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty motivating. The next one was, have you heard of the callous mind?
No, what's that?
No. So this is his thing, but he pretty much just says, do something that you don't want to do every single day to callous your mind. And so he runs a lot, and he talks about how he hates running, but he's going to run every single day because it's something that he hates to do, and he has to callous his mind and build mental strength, I guess. And so it doesn't have to be running or anything. It can just be like a cold shower in the morning, or just something that sucks, that is training your mind to just do it even if you don't want to do it. And it was interesting because there's actually science behind it. There was a podcast with Andrew Huberman and David Goggins. And David Goggins was explaining this to him, like, yeah, man, like, I just callous my mind. And then Huberman was like, oh, like, yeah, there's actually science behind it. It's like, it's actually a muscle that you can train, where if you do something that you don't like to do every single day, then your resilience, or something like your mental strength, just goes way up. And the caveat to that is, if you start to like what you're doing, then it's not training that muscle anymore. So it has to be something that you actually don't want to do. And it can be really small, like these days, I mean, I'm out of baseball, but like with my back and stuff, I don't really like lifting. But I mean, I try to get in the gym like every single day. And so that's kind of my way of doing it. But I thought that was a really good way of saying, build mental strength by doing stuff that you don't really want to do.
Yeah, I think it's called limbic friction is what Huberman called it, if I'm not mistaken. Because I actually remember that episode, and as you were explaining this, that's what I was thinking about, is limbic friction. It's exactly what you said. It's doing things you don't want to do. And I forgot about the caveat that like if you start to enjoy it, then you're losing the effect that has. And sometimes, like for me, like working out, for example, I like working out most of the time, but there's definitely times where I don't want to do it. And I notice when I do it anyways, that I feel better afterwards. And I think maybe that's in a sense working it, but I think it's kind of a good challenge to do things consistently different that you don't want to do, or that you don't always do, and just kind of going for it. Sam Parr, My First Million, he talked about doing a challenge. I forget what he called it on one of their podcasts, but basically giving yourself hardly any notice on something and just doing it. And I think for him, it was doing some sort of run or some sort of race to where, he didn't give himself much time. It's just like, you know what, tomorrow at noon, I am going to run 10 miles. I haven't ran in 10 weeks, but I'm going to go run 10 miles tomorrow just because. And it's just like challenging yourself to do some of these things. And him and Sean were talking about different ideas and things to do, related to that. And I think that could maybe apply to this too. And giving yourself kind of like short notice to where you can't prepare for it is just like another layer of going out of your comfort zone to push yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was a really good point. So, remember that. Callous your mind. All right, last one. This one's a really good one, and I've heard you talk about this as well, Jared, which is the cookie jar. And so this is pretty much just creating a mental cookie jar. So like just remembering all your past victories and accomplishments and adversities that you've overcome, and um, all of that, and just storing them in your mind somewhere, and so that when there's like a tough time that comes up, then you can open that up and be like, hey, like, I've done all of this before, like this isn't going to stop me now. um, and so, I mean, for baseball players, this can go like, it doesn't have to be big as well. It doesn't have to be like a crazy achievement. It can just be like for yourself. It was like, damn, like I overcame that adversity. Um, and that's something that was really powerful in my career. It was like, I had some adversities early in my career, injuries, the yips, stuff like that. And so, whenever something came up, I was like, you know what, this isn't big of a deal because I've already overcame all that stuff in my early years. And so that's something that has helped me, and I think would help people in the audience as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. As you were saying that, I actually just pulled up my phone. In 2019, I have a note in my phone from June 10th, 2019, and I wrote basically a bunch of things. I created a cookie jar and put in my phone. I have things all the way back from 2009 through my last season of baseball, and I just wrote things basically every year, failures that I had in my career and how I overcame them. So like I'll name a couple just to give people some examples. So one of them, let's see, go back to 2010. So my senior year of high school, I had some interest from some Division I schools, but I was unable to sign because of my grades. I literally took myself out of being able to go to a 4-year school or Division I school because my grades were so bad in high school. The comeback was I ended up signing with South Mountain Community College. Later on, went to pitch at George Mason. 2011, so my freshman year at South Mountain. Failure. I end up getting the opening day starting job. I start the first game of the season, but I proceed to give up 5 runs in 2 innings and lose the starting job literally after 1 start. Come back, I end up earning a valuable spot in the bullpen and finish with the most appearances on the team. So I was able to overcome having a horrible first start, literally get demoted all the way to the bullpen after being the opening day starter. Don't become necessarily a mainstay in the rotation the rest of the year, but I do end up becoming one of the most valuable pieces in the bullpen that year and still contributing to the team in a positive way. I'll give one more. 2012, I'm at South Mountain my sophomore year. I get off to a horrible start. Because I'm pressing, I'm trying to get exposed by teams. I'm trying to get teams interested in me. I get off to a horrible start because of that. Then at some point during the season, I just said, you know what? I've already pitched horrible. Let's just have some fun the rest of the season. And I ended up finishing strong, the season strong, and led all of junior college baseball in Arizona in wins and innings pitched that season. So like those are just some examples of like to where things can start off bad, right? It doesn't have to be big. It can be small. It can be anything. It could even be during the middle of a game to where I got off to a bad start in the first inning and I overcame it by still going 5 innings today and giving my team a chance to win, even though I gave up 3 runs in the first inning or whatever it might be. Like the more times or the more things that you can stack on each other and prove to yourself over and over again that you can overcome things, it's just going to set you up positively for things down the road. Because there's going to be time and time again to where there's small or big failures and you have the choice whether you're going to move forward in a positive way or dwell on it and let it stunt your growth.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, if you're a rut and need some motivation or a kick in the ass or something like that, then you should definitely check out this book. But that's all I've got for this one.
All right. So for the next one, I'm going to change gears a little bit. I'm going to go more baseball specific and just a resource and a tool that's been helpful for me and specifically for designing pitches or improving pitch shapes. Like, I just released a course a couple of days ago. And, one of the most common questions I get from people is how do I know, what I need to do to improve the movement? Like what does the efficiency need to be? What does the spin direction need to be? The seam orientation, all of that. And one tool that's been super helpful for me with coaching guys, and it could apply to coaches or to players, is using a website called Baseball Cloud. So most of you are probably familiar with the company Baseball Cloud if you're a coach. But one thing that they have is they basically have like a spin visual to where you can create shapes. You can basically input how the ball is spinning and it will tell you roughly how that ball will be moving. Driveline has something similar. This one's a little bit more sophisticated and it's called ShapeShiftR or Baller is another version that they have. And I'm going to share my screen and just show you guys an example of what this looks like. So if you're listening, on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, go to YouTube for this so you can see this part of the segment. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So what we have here, we have a lot of information here right now, but essentially here on the left is where I'm going to input all of the data. So I'm inputting the speed, the spin rate, the gyro angle or efficiency, in other words, the spin direction, all of those things. And then what I can do is I can play the visual so I can see how it would be spinning. And then down here at the bottom, it tells me what the movement is. So I'm mainly looking at the total IVB and the total HB. So total induced vertical brake, total horizontal brake. Down here, these other pieces are showing what the movement is from Magnus only. So now we're getting into some details that I won't dive into really at this point. But basically it's telling you what the contributors of the movement are and what it is purely off of those different aspects. So purely off of Magnus, purely off of the drag of the ball, purely off of the seams. But the number that you're used to seeing on TrackMan or Rapsodo is going to be the total induced vertical brake and total horizontal. Now with Rapsodo only factors in Magnus. So this number here where you see negative 5.9 induced vertical brake and negative 12.84 HB, that is what the movement would spit out if you were on Rapsodo and you threw a pitch exactly like this. And it's because they're only able to account for Magnus. They're not accounting for the seams on the baseball. And what you can see with this pitch, so this is a sweeper, a right-handed pitcher sweeper, you can see how much the seams are playing into it and how much seam effects that the player's getting. The pitch is actually moving at 0 inches of vertical brake and nearly 16 inches of horizontal. But if it was based off of just Magnus, it would be basically -6 of vertical brake and negative 12.8 of horizontal. So it's getting, nearly 6 inches of lift of more vertical brake, and it's getting an extra 3 inches of horizontal brake. And we can play around with this. We're like, I'll pause this and I can change some things. Let's just say I change the seam latitude to where the orientation would be on the ball. And you can see at the bottom when I do that, it changes the movement of this pitch, showing how important the seams are on the ball. So this is just like a really cool tool that I've used. An example of how I have used this is, I'll look at a pitcher that I have. Like I'll use an example of a pitcher that I have that has really low efficiency. He cuts the ball a lot, and I'm trying to get him to get a pitch to move arm side. I can come in here and basically plug in the metrics that are pretty much him, which is his efficiency. I can plug in a range of efficiency, and now I can see, okay, how can I orient these seams or change this ball slightly to where now he can get arm side movement, but I'm allowing him to pitch to his strengths without trying to get him to change something with his hand that he's just not capable of doing. So it really just allows you to kind of experiment with like, what can I do with a guy that can't do something? Like, how can I still get the ball to move generally how I want it to, even if he can't pronate or if he can't get through a pitch? Like, what are some ways I can manipulate the ball a little bit? And then you can also, with this, kind of figure out where dots should be placed on a ball. So for those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that I use dot balls a lot to give a visual for guys when you're throwing it to make sure that the ball is spinning correctly. And where you're seeing this teal rod, this axis point here, that is where the dot would be on this ball. So for a sweeper, it'd be right here. So as I'm throwing it, you'd be seeing a black dot right on that position. So it's just another really cool way to experiment with that and understand where you need to put the dots on the ball. Now this is a little more detailed, right? Like this is a deeper thing, but it's really fun to play with, especially if you're a coach. As a player, you might get lost in it a little bit and it can potentially dome you up. But for me, it's been a really valuable tool to help players.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never actually used it, but I probably should have during my career.
It depends. I mean, some players, like I said, some players need less, right? And it's knowing yourself. I mean, I didn't know you well enough as a player to know what would work for you and what wouldn't. But I would definitely say as a coach, like it'd be extremely valuable because you can kind of troubleshoot some of the things and come to the player with a plan of what we want to try to do, why you want to create it without them getting lost in exactly what the numbers are and all those things. You can really simplify the process for your players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to quickly just go through my last one because we're running out of a little bit of time. So my last one is Mindset by Carol Dweck. And so this is a book that introduces the concept of growth mindset. And so, what is a growth mindset? It pretty much just means that it's like the mentality that failure is good because failure leads to learning, and that learning leads to improvement, and improvement means success over the long term. And so, I mean, this mindset actually helps with like fear of failure because I used to really struggle with fear of failure. Like, damn, like I really don't want to fail. I don't want to suck. But it kind of just flips your mindset to be like, hey, like the greatest athletes in the world, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, these guys all have the growth mindset of being like, you know what, even if I fail, I'll just get better and I can just improve and it'll be fine. So there's nothing really like scary about failing. And just a couple quick things about the growth mindset that I thought was super interesting was that if you praise performance and not effort, then you're actually doing someone a disservice. So, to give you an example, if someone tells you, "Oh my god, you're so talented. Oh my god, like you're such a great athlete," then it's been shown scientifically that your performance will go down if someone praises you like that. Versus if someone's like, "Oh, you work really hard. You put in a lot of effort," then it's shown that your performance increases. And I think it's just because when you're told that you're so talented and you're like such a great athlete, you want to uphold that expectation. And so now you start to fear failure a little bit. But when you're told that, hey, you're such a hard worker, you put in so much effort, then it doesn't matter if you fail because you're putting in all your effort, and that's the expectation. Um, and so that was something that was really interesting that they talked about in the book. And another one was just the power of yet. So whatever you want to do, just put yet at the end. So I'm not good enough becomes I'm not good enough yet. I don't know how to do it becomes I don't know how to do it yet. And it's pretty basic and it sounds pretty woo woo, like some like positive mindset like BS sometimes, but um, the opposite is just being like, oh, I'm not good enough and I'll never be good enough. And so uh, and that's a terrible mindset to have. So yeah, just embracing the growth mindset of being like, you know what, even if I'm not good enough right now, maybe I can get there and I can put in the best effort that I can, and maybe I can achieve that. And so yeah, that was a pretty quick rundown, but it's an amazing book that really helped me throughout my career.
I'm curious about the first one when you were talking about that, like people praising you or telling you you're such a great athlete, oh, you're a great pitcher, all that. Do you think part of what goes into the performance going down is that your ego starts to go up a little bit or gets inflated, and then the work ethic starts to diminish a little bit because you think you've arrived in a sense, versus the guy, or if you're telling someone, hey, you work really hard, you put in a lot of effort, all those things. Do you feel like maybe that is instilling someone to want to continue doing that, or motivating people to want to keep doing that because of the way it's framed? I'm trying to find the words to say this, but like I just have seen people, like sometimes they get praised so much, right? They get praised, they get praised, they get praised. They think they're already good enough. They don't need to keep working because they're already there. They've arrived. So, and then they start not working as hard, and then their performance starts to slowly diminish, versus basically speaking truth into someone of the type of person that you think they are, which is a hard worker, someone who doesn't give up, someone that keeps going, someone that is consistent with their process. Those things that maybe that just by speaking truth into who you think they are, it motivates them to keep doing that and to live up to that expectation, which in return results in better performance. Is that resonating with you at all, or am I missing the mark on something?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably true. It's like, all right, if I'm super talented, then why work hard? Because I should be able to do it without having to have to work hard. Um, but I think it's that, and also just like if you're just told you're so talented and everything, like you just start to shy away from failure because you want to uphold that self identity as being that really talented person. Because if you fail, then you're not a talented person. So you start to shy away from failure that way. But yeah, I think you touched on a really good point, which was, um, proving someone right when they just keep praising you and like trying to prove them right is, it can actually be detrimental versus like proving someone wrong. I think proving someone wrong is very, very motivating, and trying to prove someone right is very like anxiety inducing. And so, um, I don't say go around people who are like doubting you, but maybe, uh, like not stay away, but like, if someone's praising you too much, then just like, like have a little bit of a balance there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I like that. Well, the last one that I have really isn't a resource, like a tangible resource of, hey, go read this book, go look at this app or whatever. But I would say, honestly, probably one of the best resources I've had for learning as a coach or a player, or just really growing in any area, is having people in my life that I can go to ask questions to, whether it's a mentor or it's a family member, a friend, any of those things, having a community of people that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can learn from. And also, I would say find people, they don't have to be a friend, but it can be someone that you look up to that maybe is further along on the journey of wherever you want to go. So if you're, currently a high school baseball player and you want to play Division I baseball, maybe try to connect with someone that's at a Division I school, a current pitcher, and see if you can pick his brain on his process, things that he's learned in his couple years in college. Or maybe you want to play professional baseball, talk to someone that's currently living that life and get to know what they're doing and what they think it takes to get to that level. Or as a coach, like, it doesn't really matter what the area is find people that are ahead of you that you can learn from, and that you can ask questions to, and that you can really, start to get a better understanding of their perspective and what it takes to get to that level. And it kind of comes back to the plus minus equal system. I forget where I heard this from. It wasn't that long ago. It was a couple months ago. But essentially, this is the plus side of it. So you are seeking after someone that is ahead of you on the journey that you can learn from. The minus side of the equation would be you are now the teacher and you are helping someone below you. And then the equal is someone that is a peer, someone that is on the same path as you at the same level, and you can push each other, motivate each other, and compete with each other. So I'm talking mainly right now from, the plus side of the equation of trying to learn from someone ahead of you. And I've just found that to be a super valuable thing for me. I've never been afraid to reach out to people that I don't know. Like, if I see someone, that I think is a good pitching coach and I want to learn from them and I've never met them, I'm not afraid to reach out, whether it's sending a direct message, finding their email address, or finding some sort of connection. Like, I just really believe in putting yourself out there, because the worst thing that happens is they say no, or you get no response, and you're exactly where you are now. And I've met countless people this way, like whether it was a pitching coordinator that I wanted to connect with because I think he does a great job with their organization, where I literally will message him, we'll set up a phone call, and before I know it, now I have this guy's phone number and I'm learning from him. When I was in high school, I wasn't afraid to reach out to colleges. When I was in college, I wasn't afraid to reach out to pro teams. Like, when I was in indie ball, I literally was emailing scouts for pro teams to come watch me pitch, because I was going to be my own advocate. I wasn't going to be afraid to reach out to people. And I think that's allowed me to go to a lot of places that maybe I wouldn't have had opportunities to if I didn't put myself out there and learn from them and network. And I'm not saying to do this in the sense of like using people, because I think when it's a one-sided equation all the time and you're just looking to get, and you're never giving, I don't think that's a positive thing. So find ways that you can contribute as well. But I just do think that there's a lot of value in finding people ahead of you on the journey that you're trying to get to that you can learn from.
Yeah, for sure. That was awesome. Yeah, so that's it from me. Those are the 3 books.
It's great. Yeah, this was a helpful episode. You gave me some ideas. I don't think I've read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, but I haven't read the other 2 books. So I think The Open's the one I got to start with.
Yeah, for sure. That one's a really good one.
Perfect. All right. That's the pod.